Hey, friends and listeners of the Switch for Good podcast. Yep, that's you. I have some really exciting news. Dotsie and I have started a Switch for Good podcast Facebook group. We created it so we can build a community of fans that will help us improve the show and deliver on the topics that you want to learn more about. So we want to hear what your favorite content is, what you want more of, and what you want less of. And if you like the length of the show, Dotsie and I are always talking about the length of the show, right, Dotsie?
Yes.
We want to tailor our show around the needs and desires of our incredible listeners, almost 500,000 of you. And it's really simple to join. Just go to our Switch for Good Facebook page. That's Switch, the number 4, and then Good. And then click on groups. And there we are, the Switch for Good podcast chat. You can post directly in the group, share ideas, talk to other listeners, and connect with like-minded folks. So go, run, join our Facebook group and tell us what you want.
Hello out there, everyone. Welcome to the Switch for Good podcast. I am Dotsie Bausch, and I am here with Alexandra Paul, who is going to give us 3 of her favorite books that are must-reads for 2021 from our A&D must-reads for 2021 special.
Dotsie, you and I both prefer nonfiction to fiction. So this week, and maybe I'll pepper it in because there are some fiction books which I've loved. And my twin sister is writes she actually writes mostly nonfiction and historical nonfiction. So I guess maybe it runs in the family, but she's a big fiction reader, and she always, it's kind of a joke in my family how I don't like to read fiction. But so I think you're going to love my books, Dotsie.
Can't wait.
One surprise is by hero, Dr. Michael Greger.
I knew it.
It's called How Not to Die. He's had a bunch of books, and they're all really, really good, ranging from how to stop a pandemic and how not to diet. And this one, How Not to Die, is a tome, but it's just wonderful because you can open up and it says, how not to die from heart disease, how not to die from diabetes. So you can use it as, you don't have to read the whole thing like I did cover to cover, but you can pick out what your issues are and learn a lot about how to not die from those issues. So that's my first book, How Not to Die by Dr. Michael Greger. Now, my next book is a lot more personal. It's called When Things Fall Apart. And Dotsie, last week you actually also talked, one of your books was authored by somebody who I think was a Buddhist monk, right?
Yes, Standing at the Edge by Joan Halifax. Yep.
Okay. So this is When Things Fall Apart is by Pema Chodron, who is a monk, also a Buddhist monk. And this book was given to me by my mother when our family was going through a very hard time when my brother was about to go to jail for 4 years for animal rights issues. And basically the message here is to not push away pain, but to let it go through us. So face it, which is, it's a pretty obvious concept that when we try and push away pain, we actually end up with more pain, spending more energy around pain, pushing it away, than if we just accepted it, let it go through us and moved on. But it's much easier said than done. And this book is a really, really great book to help you through hard times. In fact, the subtitle is Heart Advice for Difficult Times. Mm-hmm. I highly recommend it, whether you're going through a breakup, a death, any kind of difficulty, or just to prepare yourself because life gives us difficulties all the time. So When Things Fall Apart. This third book is called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, and I read it in high school and it had such a big effect on me. It's both When Things Fall Apart and Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, are small books because Dr. Michael Greger's book is so huge. I didn't want to overwhelm y'all with huge books. This is a small book, but it's so full of important information. Viktor Frankl was in a concentration camp during the Holocaust, and he wrote this book afterwards to try and figure out why some people lived and some people didn't, even though they were all in the same circumstances. And the reason that he comes up with is basically meaning, and that when people have purpose and meaning, they are more apt to survive. But it has so much more to it that this book will stay with you your whole life if you read it. So I highly recommend Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Thank you for that. I've never read that book, and it's insane because I know it's one of the best ever written. So you've inspired me. I'm going to get it.
I think,
Download it tonight.
Oh, it's come up in a couple of our interviews, Dotsie.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about today's guest because it was so wonderful to speak with her. She has been raw vegan for a very, very long time. And as we know, Dotsie, because we had a raw fruitarian on, and that show was very, very popular. People are very interested in raw diets, even if they don't go 100% raw.
I was really excited to talk to her about how to stay warm when you're raw, because I feel like I'm cold all the time. So I think people are really going to like her answers around that, because that's a common question that comes up. And I've heard a lot of people talk about that who are former raw vegans, right? And that was one of the reasons that typically runs throughout most people when they say they switched back, was because they just really missed like hot soup and just hot anything in the dead of winter. So how to get through winter on a raw vegan diet. So you guys will find out.
Because she lives in Chicago, so she knows. And she's very slender too, so she doesn't have any body fat to keep her warm. So today's guest is a legend in the Chicago restaurant scene and a pioneer of the raw vegan diet. 74 years young, Karyn Calabrese doesn't look her age one bit, and she lives an active and vibrant life. Karyn is a former restaurateuse who introduced Chicago to raw vegan cuisine over 20 years ago. And her 3 restaurants attracted celebrity patrons and landed her on Oprah, where she was able to educate the millions of viewers about the benefits of a raw vegan diet. She's also the author of the book Soak Your Nuts, which is a conscious comfort foods cookbook. Karyn, we are ready to hear all of your secrets to youth and vitality. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Switch for Good.
Thank you for having me. I actually have the second longest standing raw food restaurant in the country. There were no other raw food restaurants when I opened years ago. You had Arisal Thumb, who had done it in New York. You had a couple of guys, Morehouse College in Atlanta. And you had Giuliano, who opened up 6 months after me. There were no raw restaurants before us, okay? So excuse me, not just Chicago, the country. Okay.
No, we appreciate that. We want to hear about you. It's very inspiring. So Karyn, we wouldn't know to look at you now, but your journey to such vitality and a long, healthy life did not start off the way most people would think. You were born into a family that was not necessarily healthy. And you also had a lot of problems yourself as a child in terms of health.
Right. Well, not only were they not healthy, they were plagued with tons of challenges. My mom died at 47. My grandmother died at 50, and my great-grandmother died at 60. So I could see the picture in front of me, and they were all tiny like me, and they got very large, and they had degenerative diseases. So I knew that I had to do something different. I had every allergy known to man. As a teenager, I had terrible skin. I used to have the worst PMS on the planet. I thought that's the way it's supposed to be, which a lot of women probably feel that way. Well, it's that time of the month. Ladies, this is when you're supposed to be the strongest and the clearest, right? But the world is so turned around and so upside down that we're living a whole matrix of weird stuff that we believe. I was challenged very strongly. And by the grace of God, my mother introduced me. Oh, I forgot the most important. I was constipated. I used to go to the bathroom once a week, once every 2 weeks. And the doctors told my mother, well, that's normal. That's just her system, right? So I've overcome many things along in the years along with my journey. I've had other things that have plagued me along the way. And I've gotten rid of or turned everything around or regenerated myself 100% in an all natural way. The only time I went to a doctor was when I broke my shoulder in 17 places 3 years ago. For breaks, I'd go to doctors, but other than that, and it's for me, I don't say that's necessarily for everybody. I have managed to find a holistic way to heal everything along the way. And I believe actually it can work for everybody.
You're raw vegan.
Yes, ma'am.
what inspired you to go, I think you went vegetarian to vegan to raw. Can you tell us a little bit about that evolution?
Yes, well, I was a vegetarian for a few years. My mother introduced me to carrot juice, and I started drinking carrot juice for the first time. We're talking 50 years ago, 55 years ago. I started drinking carrot juice, and I started going to the bathroom for the first time. And oh, lo and behold, I'm going to the bathroom, and then, oh, my skin cleared up. Amazing. And so my journey was watching myself heal and change along the way. So when I went so far with that, then I have met Dr. Ann Wigmore, who was a vegan and raw foodist, and I wasn't ready to jump into the raw 100%, but I did become vegan, and I gave up the dairy. And then I watched my body shape change. Not that I was ever overweight, but I just saw a little bit that it started to come on. You know, we tend to think just because the axis of the world goes around one more time, we're supposed to put a little weight on. Not the reality. At least back then they did. And so I saw my body shape kind of change too when I became a vegan, when I got rid of the dairy. And then I started listening to Dr. Wigmore and detoxing with her and seeing the changes and difference. And so mine has been an evolution. I didn't read a book one day and become a raw foodist. In fact, there weren't that many now. Edie Mae Huntsberger, Victoria Provenza, Dr. Wigmore, there weren't that many back then to read. So my whole journey has been an evolution, which is when I work with people, I tend to steer them in that direction. So often when we try to go from A to Z overnight, it's a concept and the biochemistry of our bodies haven't caught up to it. So this is that backwards dancer. You know, a few years ago, you had all these lovely young girls that were raw foods and they said, no, we got to eat meat now because we got sick. You know, they had huge followings and they were dragging people back with them. And I'm not saying they're bad people. They just didn't allow the evolution to happen.
What is the actual definition of a raw food diet? My understanding is it's everything that wouldn't be cooked over 118 degrees.
That is actually anything heated over. I only go up to 115 with my dehydration, but they do say you can go up to 120. Anything over that destroys the enzymes and the oxygen. And this is the reason we become raw foodists, is so that we have all the oxygen in our food, which, by the way, you can live with a lot of stuff, but you can't live without breathing and oxygen, right? And oxygen is a precursor, lack of it, to just about everything people are going through right now. When man was created, the oxygen levels were at 38%. After the Industrial Revolution, they were down to 22. All viruses are anaerobic, so you want that oxygen in your food. So even if you're vegan and you're still 90% cooked, you're going to get some great benefits, but you could get even greater. So you want the oxygen and the enzymes, and you need enzymes for every metabolic purpose in your body. When the enzymes are gone, that's when you die. It's that simple. So every time you sit down to a cooked meal of food, I don't care if it's keto, vegetarian, vegan, whatever, if it's cooked, your body has to use up that store of enzymes to break the food down. So you're literally using up your life force every time you eat the wrong meal. So even if you're not ready to be 100% like I am, I recommend to people just change the equation, make it 60 raw, 40 cooked, 50-50, 70-30. But most people are having a glass of orange juice or their vegetable juice in the morning and a salad at night, and the rest of the day is cooked. Mm-hmm. So I just like to encourage people, change that dynamic as much as you can wherever you can. So raw food is, I know I give you such an answer. Raw foods is anything that hasn't been heated. I go 115, which, by the way, people go, well, I live in a cold environment. I have to have my warm food. Well, I have two answers for that. One, if you heat something up to 115, that's pretty darn hot. You just use a food thermometer, and you can see when it hits 110, take it out, and it's going to burn your mouth. So you can get raw enzymes. But some of us get so that we only like food room temperature anyway. You get to a point where you don't even want that kind of heat in your body necessarily. And the other thing, you can put a little cayenne pepper in your socks and it'll warm up your whole body. There's so many ways to get around it ultimately when you're ready.
Did you say in your socks?
Yeah, well, you don't want it on your skin. You want to put it between your foot. Warms the whole body. And putting cayenne pepper on your food. When I had my restaurant and we had the raw salad bar, there was always cayenne pepper at the end of the bar, so you could put it on your food and it's going to warm your body too.
You live in Chicago too, Karyn, so you must be able to refute that argument that someone lives in a cold place so they can't eat raw.
I mean, well, the fact that you can't eat it is just in your brain. And that's once again where I'm going to the body catching up with the brain with the decisions you want to make. Because you'll find if you have an evolution, you don't even worry about hot and cold. I mean, I can go outside and it's cold and I'm not going to catch a cold or get sick or whatever. And I can be in 100 degrees weather and I'm very happy. as humans, as animals, we are adaptable. We're meant to be adaptable. We don't have furry feathers, so we're meant to be able to adapt to our environment. And when you've been doing it, and when you evolve and do it the right way, you don't worry about those things.
Mm-hmm.
That's the little brain talking about the cold.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I remember before probably 5 years before I went vegan, somebody was doing some research on it, a teammate or something, and had suggested it. And I remember saying, oh, that sounds interesting, but it would just be so difficult to travel. Like I would just never be able to travel again because it would be so restricting. And it was all here, 100% of it. Yeah.
And that's what puts everybody in their place, so to speak, and makes it so difficult, or can make it so difficult to have change. When I work with people, and I'm writing a book about it now too, it's about learning that you don't just change your brain, you have to change your environment too, you know, and it's doable. Whatever, if people knew what I went through in these past 4 years of my life, okay, I should be someplace in a ditch with a bottle of whiskey or something with me or something, right? If I allowed the fact that change comes to help us grow. If you get that mindset that things are taken away or moved around because you've reached your plateau there and it's time to make a change. And that can even be associated with different challenges you can get, okay, you've done enough of this, it's time to do something else. And that's what we're here for. We're not here to make a lot of money, be the prettiest, the smartest, the most on Instagram, blah, blah, blah. We're here to evolve. That's what we're put here for, to evolve. So every chance you're given that, hey, go for it. And so I got so fat and lazy, not literally, but I was so comfortable. I was making millions. I was doing it, and boom, it all left. And guess what? I'm better off than I was before because I'm growing and changing. I'm having the chance to start all over again, just like a 20-year-old, right? So there's no ceiling on my life, and that's what I teach, is teaching people to keep an open mind. You're a vegan, so what? You're a raw foodist, so what? There's still more to evolve into, right?
Yeah. Tell us, Karyn, about the last 4 years. I mean, that sounds like, it sounds like a lot. It sounds like it's been really tough, but goodness gracious, especially in 2020, people went through so much and could use your inspiration and your guidance on how to get through tough times.
My daughter's 50, by the way. And she's a producer and a director out in Hollywood. She does very well. And I embarrassed the hell out of her. I don't know if you saw on Instagram, I put that bikini picture on the other day. But I didn't do it to show off being in a bikini. It was a bucket list thing. I have a sauna in my home now, and I always wanted to go in the snow after being in the sauna, right? The ladies in Asia, you go in the health clubs there, they're 90 years old. There isn't a wrinkle anywhere on their skin, right? By the way, I do all this as much for vanity as I do for health. Okay.
I like the honesty.
There's not a wrinkle anywhere on their skin. And I would study this. My husband and I used to go 2 or 3 times a year. And I'd hang out in the health club while he was working. These women, unbelievable, 80, 90 years old. Well, what they did was they went from the hot tub to the cold tub, always. And they would do that like 20 times back and forth. Well, it's working your lymph system. It's doing all kinds of things. Anyway, so I had a spa at my house, and I have one here. And I'd go in and then go take a cold shower. But I always wanted to jump in the snow like the Scandinavians do. So the other day, snow here in Chicago, I went in my sauna. I put a bikini on and went out in the snow. She should be happy I put the bikini on, didn't go naked. And to do one of my bucket list things. Okay, so you had asked me a question.
Sure, I saw that. I want to recommend everyone go to Karyn's Instagram. She's in a teeny weeny yellow bikini and she looks amazing at 74. You are an inspiration. And I also, we'll talk later, but I wanted to ask some of your other health tips too, your health and beauty tips, because I know that, what did you call it? Conversion hydrotherapy or something, the cold to hot thing is something that you do.
I have no wrinkles, and it's not like I don't go in the sun, because the sun is our food and our healing. We're supposed to be in the sun. And I feel bad for people being taught to hide from it. I mean, once the sun is gone, we're dead. I mean, with no sun, there's no life. But yet we're taught one of these weird myths: hide from the sun, put some chemicals on your body, stay away from the sun. If you make yourself a little plant environment internally, the sun will just come and warm you and brown you beautifully, if that's what you're looking for. But anyway, you would ask me another question. You see?
I was asking about the last 4 years of your life.
Well,
yeah,
I had some very strong reversals. I had 3 restaurants going. I was at the top of my game. I would get a couple hundred people at my detox, and everybody wasn't doing all this back then, I had a 7,500 square foot place. I lived on the Gold Coast in Chicago, 3,400 square foot duplex apartment on the lake, right? I mean, it was a palace, literally. I custom made the whole thing. I even had a place for my enema bucket in my spa, custom made, the whole thing. And it was beautiful. And we opened up Green, the big restaurant, 150-seat vegan restaurant. Nobody was ready for that 7, 8 years ago. If I was doing it now, but I took over this huge place, $10,000 chandeliers and everything. And it wasn't ready to be done. And it was just one thing after another. And I thought, okay, God, well, at least I got my health. And then I fell and broke my shoulder in 17 places and my kneecap. And I'm busy looking for another place. Actually, customers and my employees came to take care of me. I couldn't go to the bathroom alone. I couldn't dress myself. I was on a cane. And I was outside. Oh, and then my dog died. Oh, yeah, forgot my dog died. The love of my life. My dog died too. And I'm going, oh my God, really? I said, what's going on? And I'm walking down the street with this cane. And I looked at him and I thought, dirty word, this is not working. Seeing myself walking down the street with a cane. One of the customers said she'd bedazzle it for me. Oh, and by the way, I was a dancer. I used to take a professional advanced ballet class with girls 18 and under. So everything's gone. Anyway, I'm back in class. There's no cane. I've started a whole new business. I have a wellness spa over here again. I'm writing a third book. I live in a cute little quaint house in the suburbs, but I grew all my vegetables last year. So they went from the garden to my juicer. And the most amazing thing, I did grow vegetables before in my life, but I never composted. You know what it's like to have a thing of garbage and see it turn to dirt? I mean, I was just in heaven. It was like a new diamond ring, This stage of my life is being present. It never occurred to me I couldn't do anything. As a Black woman, my mother said, can't, there's no such word as can't in the English language, so you can do anything. And then my grandfather said, never let being Black or a woman be an excuse for what you. So I didn't grow up with a mindset that I couldn't do anything. So everything felt easy. And I don't know that I was always present. You know what I'm saying? In fact, I know I wasn't. I mean, when I look at the shopping I did and some of the stuff I bought, I definitely wasn't present. I was just doing. So the beauty of this stage of my life is I am present every second and I love it so much. And I have a different relationship, not only with myself, but everybody I meet too. It's just different. That's all. I won't say better or worse. It's just different. And it's nice to have something different at the different stages of your life.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, it sounds like you've gotten through it with flying colors, and feeling so good has helped you. I know our listeners and viewers are interested in, you mentioned juicing and how it changed. It was the beginning of your journey to health. Tell us what juicing is, because I've heard some people say, no, juicing's not good because it takes away the most important part of the fruit or vegetable, takes away the fiber, and then other people feel like it's great, full of nutrients still.
Everything you put in your body doesn't have to have fiber. That's number one, okay? When you juice, it goes directly to your veins. It feeds you immediately, so there's no digestion or breaking down, so you get instant energy. Yes, it isn't natural to how as humans we're meant to eat, because when God created the plants, He didn't create a juicer next to it, We're supposed to actually go out, pick it up, and eat it. But we're living in such it's such a hostile environment for human beings. We have to take some extraordinary methods to bring some balance to our lives. So I've been juicing. I started with carrot juice. And because you get the nutrients right away, you just get this energy. You start to feel alive. Now, you could say, well, can't you just eat the carrots? But it takes a pound of carrots to make 8 ounces of juice. So am I just sit and eat a pound of carrots all the time? We're in this fast-paced world. We want to get it in and get going. So although I would not recommend starting with carrot juice as I did, because it's way too much sugar, even natural sugar. So but it was a nice beginning for me. But when I work with people, I put them on a mixture of juices and not necessarily a lot of carrots to start with, but it's a great way to start kids and get people doing it, because it's so delicious. So yeah, it's going to be better if you're going to sit and eat your fruits and vegetables, but how much of it are you going to eat, and are you going to do other things? You're going to have a drink, make a vegetable juice. And I think it has so many wonderful, and you get energy. I mean, you get condensed nutrients, you get a lot of energy. And if you're a little OCD like me, you get a lot of focus from it too. You get a lot done.
Yeah. It's interesting to me to find out that you still detox regularly, because I'm thinking, what on earth is she detoxing from with this, what you put in your body? And you live such a healthy life already, obviously. So what does detox mean to you? And then how do you recommend people to do it?
Well, as we're speaking, I am, and I don't like to say this because people go, well, how long or what are you doing or blah, blah, blah. I'm in a fast right now, and I'm doing it for a specific reason. My mother was born February 8th, and she died February 9th. So I try to do something every year on her birthday and death to honor something that's going to be fun and pleasant and honor my life. So, and I do a fast 4 times a year. So this is the winter one. And when I started all this, I learned from Dr. Ann Wigmore, who started it in our time and started the whole raw food movement. It was redefining, it was to stop eating. So when you stop eating, you give your body a chance to regenerate itself. You get new cells every 7 years, you get new tissue every 3 months. So the body's in an ongoing cycle of regenerating itself. But if it's got to stop and break down coffee and food and dairy and meat, then it stops the regeneration progress, which is why you start to age and get sick. You know, and I will add, I haven't done anything yet. I've done no surgery yet. I'm not saying I won't at 85 or 90 because I do it but right now I want to keep a roadmap in front of me, because every line, everything you get on your face shows you what's going on internally with your organ. All right. So, you know, when I was younger, I was a pot smoking vegetarian, and it wasn't legal back then, but I watched these lines change on my face. Okay. Because that's what it was doing. It was my liver and my small intestine. These are your adrenals and your kidneys. And I used to have a double chin as a skinny little girl, but that's your organs prolapsing internally from not going to the bathroom. And this, the leavens everybody wants to get rid of, well, that's your spleen, pancreas, that's your carbs, whatever. So I'm not ready to hide my mass yet. In fact, I kind of want to see how far I can go. I'm not saying I'm good, and I don't fault anybody for choosing it, but I just want to see how far I can go, you know, before I feel, okay, I got to do something now. But so I detox to reverse everything, you see, and I will look younger at the end of this than I even do right now. Okay, and that's why I'm addicted to doing it. I'm driving behind buses, so I'm taking in chemicals. I pump my own gas, I'm taking in chemicals. I get my clothes dry cleaned. You're taking, your skin is the largest, eliminated and absorbed. So there's a zillion ways we're taking in chemicals. And even if I'm, you know, I buy organic, but that organic farm is right next to another farm. The wind doesn't stop me. I'm not living in a tropical, we're tropical animals too. I'm living in Chicago. So I'm going against the grain of a human being life, that I have to do extraordinary things to keep some semblance of balance. So I detox minimum 4 times a year. And I truly believe that this is why I enjoy maybe even better health than some of the raw foodists I know, and some of the vegans I know aren't doing or quite as well. I'm not judging, but I think if you're living in the jungle, pulling your foods off the trees and eating with the circadian rhythms and doing everything you're supposed to, you don't need to detox. But if that's not your life, you need to detox, which is why I'll do once a commercial. One of my books, the Soak Your Nuts book, this one is cleansing, and it's my detox program. Okay, no more commercial.
Oh, cool. No, it's good. People want to know.
Yes, they do. And so they're going to be wondering, what does a detox mean to you?
Okay, well, you know, I've had different levels of detoxing, and I don't always do the same one all the time throughout the year. I do recommend people starting with one that they're comfortable with. So for me, detoxing means you stop eating, you stop chewing. You can do it. I do not generally recommend people do a water fast. I'm going from juice to water from here. You know, I'm raw, juice, and then water. I'm not eating steak one day and juice fasting the next day. You know, I'm doing a process, and I so believe the process is the most important thing, because in your body, if you just stop eating, your body thinks it's starving. It's not doing any healing or cleanup work. It just thinks it's starving. You lose some water, weight, and some other stuff, and but it doesn't last. So for me, it's when you stop eating, you stop chewing. But you can do different forms to say, well, I'm going to detox from sugar this month or this week, or I'm going to detox from that. It's giving the body a rest from what they're usually doing. But when I work with people, I work them up to a fast, if that's where they want to be, but they never go from eating to fast.
And do you do enemas or sweatings?
Oh, yes. I have a colonic center, so I'm a and actually I'm a trained colon therapist. I won't give anybody a colonic, but I'm trained to do it. I think it's one of the most important things we need to do because if you're eating 5 times a day and making 5 times a day, great. If you're eating 5 times a day, eating once a day, you're holding something back. What goes in must come out. If it doesn't, where to go? So what I learned in colon therapy school is everybody should do a series of 10 a couple of times a year. But back to the detoxing. So I don't believe anybody should ever fast without doing colonic also, or enemas, because you are releasing poisons back into your body and you better get them out a lot quicker or they just recircle and they stay in longer and you don't go as far as I feel you could. Sometimes people do my detox classes and they don't want to do the enemas and I don't recommend they fast. It's that simple. I know your next question, coffee enemas. No, I don't believe in coffee enemas. We do Dr. Widmore's form before. We use chlorophyll, wheatgrass, chlorophyll, things natural to the body. Caffeine to me is poison. Whether you put it in this way or this way, it's poison.
Alexandra and I both dealt with years of eating disorders, and it's a topic that we cover and traverse really often on this podcast with our guests. And you were a model like the two of us in our earlier days. Did you ever experience any type of disordered eating that has helped to discern and bring you to the very healthy space that you're in nowadays with your eating?
Well, my mother used to call me the only Black anorexic. So I really didn't eat, but it wasn't for weight loss. And as a matter of fact, I was kind of ridiculed for being too thin as a child. But what I can say to you is dancing all the years I did and working with all the young ballerinas where I'd watch them have lollipops in between class or cups of coffee in between class. And what I found was, and I worked with a lot of them, is once again, you take it to your biochemistry, not your brain to stop it. And when you put your body in balance, it's very difficult to do things that harm it because your body wants to thrive. That's what it's designed to do. So we really have to work hard at making it go in the wrong direction. The world is set up to help us do it, go in the wrong direction. But when you bring your body in balance, it's very difficult to harm it. And so that's why I believe in detoxing regularly, because that's how you get to the balance. You don't go from A to Z overnight. You have a trillion cells in here, and these trillion cells they know every single thing they're supposed to do. When we think of it that way, every cell knows what it's supposed to do. You have to use your little brain to make it do something else. You know what I'm saying? So when I work with people, especially people with disorders, we start on the biochemistry. We don't even worry about other stuff they're doing. I worked with a woman once, this is years ago. She was on cocaine. And she said to me after working with me for 8 months, she said, "Karyn, you haven't told me to stop the cocaine." She said, "You've got me doing all this good stuff and vegan." She wasn't raw yet. And I said, because if I could just say stop cocaine, I'd be on 60 Minutes. But if you continue to detox, you break down those layers of toxicity that you've built. And that little cell that's in there that knows what it's supposed to do goes, "Okay, no, you don't want that. No, you don't want to do that. No, you don't need to think that." It breaks through. We come here in perfection, knowing what to do. We just cover it up. And that's why detoxing is so important.
You said that our bodies are naturally drawn to being healthy, but that our external environment is fighting against that. So there's like a war of our natural bodies, which we aren't in very much because our external atmosphere is so, our lives and the actual world around us is not natural anymore. And we're full with all these addictive foods. How do you help people with whom you work to start the process of breaking these addictions and getting their body to a more natural state where you claim that it's dying to be?
Well, I start out by asking the person what are their goals. All right. So I don't put the goal in you to be a raw foodist. All right. That's a mistake right there. I ask, what are your goals? What are your intentions? What do you feel you want to change? That's where you start. When you go in telling people what to do and 5 ounces of this and 3 ounces of this and do this every day and blah, blah, blah. You know what? A person can hang on to that for a bit, but it's not going in organically. It's not helping you to evolve. If you keep detoxing, after you detox, it's like, oh, wow, yeah. You just don't want it anymore. You can take yourself backwards again. But that's why I never stop detoxing, so I don't lose the message, because I could lose it.
Tell us about the raw foods, because if people think raw foods and they just think salad, they're not going to stick to it.
Well, that's what I was known for, because even when I made cooked animal products, I was a great cook. I've always loved to cook. I learned from my great-grandmother. She'd come in from church on Sundays, roll her stockings down, put her house coat on, and we'd go in the kitchen and wash greens and make food. My favorite thing. My mother did everything frozen. She was a career woman. But I learned to cook with my great-grandmother, so I've always loved to cook. So I've always made great food. And when I came to the raw world, I met Dr. Wigmore, and there was only one other raw book out. Edie Mae Huntsberger, who had cured herself with cancer, Dr. Wigmore's book, and Victoria Sylvester. So I had some basics there. They were the ones who did all these cheeses everybody's eating. That's the original people that did it. And so, once you get some basics, you can make anything. I just made these lettuce wraps like I do at P.F. Chang's that my husband likes, and I did it all raw. Well, here's the other thing. So I say I'm a great cook, but I believe everybody has it in them. It's just what you want to draw on, right? I think we all intuitively know all of these things. It's where you pull your energy. So I just created foods. I mean, I did some of the first gourmet raw foods, but a better chef than me is Aretha Bassam. He was one of the original raw food chefs of all. He's in Panama. Food like you would not believe. So we use dehydration. So you can do all kinds of crusts and cookies. And by the way, I just did a new bread that nobody has done. I'm opening up another raw store, but not a restaurant. It will be a grab and go.
Lasagna and bread. But what do you recommend to your clients, like for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? What are some options? Because I want to open up our audience's mind. Just like the problem with veganism is people always think, oh, it just is too limited. I know, Karyn, from researching you and looking at all the amazing food you've made, that it's limitless raw food. I saw you make a lemon cheesecake.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We don't come with a little tag on our foot saying to eat at 9, 12, and 6. This is created by society. And this creates so many eating problems because people are trying to fit their hunger or whatever within those times. Yeah. So I'm a big person. You eat when you're hungry. And if you're not hungry, you're not supposed to eat. I don't care if it's 12 o'clock lunchtime. If you're not hungry, you don't eat. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I don't believe in the big breakfast whole thing. I think that's another myth that we've been kind of brought up. You've got to have a big breakfast. It's the worst thing you can do. We're on the circadian rhythms of the universe, right? I mean, you can't get away from it. You can call me a woo-woo, whatever, but we are connected to the tide and the moon and the whole thing, right? So the way the world is designed is when the sun goes down, we're not supposed to eat. I still work with that one, but when I'm fasting, it's great. I don't eat after sundown. So we're not supposed to eat after sundown because if you were in the jungle, as we were created to be, you would be able to find food or eat it, right? You wouldn't know what you were picking up. You wouldn't know what you're eating. So we're designed to stop eating when the sun goes down. The body is supposed to fast from sundown to sun up. When you break the fast from fasting the night before, well, this is when all your organs are regenerating and cleaning out and doing all the stuff. And then from fasting, you're supposed to break the fast with the number one food, water. Okay, nothing but water. We're supposed to drown ourselves. So when I work with people, I have them drink 32 ounces of water first thing in the morning. I don't care how long it takes to finish it. You can't eat, drink, or anything until that water is gone, right? We're not supposed to have 32 ounces of coffee, orange juice, vegan, vegetable, nothing. We're supposed to have water. That's what God intended to flush our bodies from the night before. And what you'll find when you do that is you're not hungry until about 12. It's the most amazing thing. You're not hungry. Not right away, and you do have to pee a lot, but eventually you're not hungry, right? And then after that, then lunchtime, 1 or 2 o'clock, this is when your system is the strongest, your digestive system. So you're supposed to eat your heavier meal then, and then go light for the evening.
And I know that your books, Soak Your Nuts, and then you're writing your third book. What was...
Well, they're both called Soak Your Nuts. One is a cookbook, and this side is cooked vegan food, and this side is raw food. So you get 2 books in one.
Oh, and brilliant.
Yeah, my publisher didn't want to do it. And I said, really? I said, in Canada, they put 2 books all the time on either side. I kind of forced them to do it. And they didn't want me to call it Soak Your Nuts. And I said, you know what? This is the only title I'm going with. Because when you soak nuts, you break down the enzyme inhibitors. You bring out the enzymes, and they're easy to digest. But I also wanted something to bring a smile to your face. We're so serious about all this stuff all the time. I mean, it's just a little part of your life, actually. Even it isn't the whole thing, right?
So there's lots and lots of recipes in there. There are people that say, okay, I'm going to go 60% raw, like you sort of suggest at the beginning, and maybe not all in, but just commit to a percentage. And then they will just have a tantalizing experience across their palate with all of the different raw foods. Okay.
I heard you on a show and you mentioned dry brushing, and I realized, oh my gosh, I used to do that in the 80s. I need another one. So I went and got one, Karyn, and it's only been a few days, but my skin has totally made a difference.
Well, that's the other reason you don't get wrinkles too, or cellulite. You dry brush, and you always brush towards your heart, even up there, because you're working the lymphatic system too. And by the way, the lymphatic system really doesn't get any of the kind of acknowledgement it should if you want to compartmentalize the body. That's what I went out in the snow for the other day. But the lymphatic system is the garbage dump of the body, and this is always collecting the garbage, and it doesn't get circulation because it doesn't have a heart to pump it. So dry brushing it keeps that circulation going through your body. It's so beautiful. I've dry brushed for years, and I got no wrinkles anywhere, honestly.
So what for the person over here has no idea what you two are talking about? Inform me.
Well, I used to sell them in my store. I don't think I have one around here. It's just people use them in the sauna. It's just a brush, and it's not real hard, but it's real soft, not real soft. And you just brush your skin, and you always brush towards your heart.
Okay.
In places in Korea, or some of the places we would visit, all of their washcloths are scrubby like that and hard for the skin. And you get away any dead skin cells, and honestly, you can't feel my skin, but it really is. It's like baby soft.
So thank you for being on our show, Switch for Good, Karyn. We really appreciate it.
I'm so blessed. I really am. This was so joyful to me in my heart. And I just like to remind people that if you don't take care of your body, the most magnificent machine you'll ever be given, where are you going to live? Thank you so much. I love you guys.
You're so generous with your information. Thank you so much. Hey, folks. Okay. Back by very popular demand is our plant-powered plate fridge magnet, which you are going to receive for free if you leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast on. So here are the details. Just write your quick review. Does not need to be long, does not need to be a whole story. Just be honest and speak from the heart. Then take a quick screenshot of the review you wrote and email it to us at podcast@switchforgood.org. That's podcast@switchforgood.org. And include your mailing address so we can send you a power plate. We are doing this because the more reviews we garner, the higher we go in search results, which means more folks will learn about our podcast. So the power is in your hands. Leave us a review, and zoom, your power plate arrives at your doorstep.
So thank you so much for tuning in today. If we helped you in any way, then click the subscribe button and let's keep hanging out together. We have so much more to share with you.
And if you need more information on actually making the switch for good, please visit us at switchforgood.org for loads of info. And you can subscribe to our mailing list where you will receive all sorts of super cool gifts, discount codes to our very fave dairy-free products, and a lifetime of powerful health tips.
So join us on the journey to switch for good. This is the future.